Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Tice's Tech Track, a podcast series in which I, Tice, share my journey through building online businesses, mostly in the tech space, because that's kind of like what I'm specialized in. And basically my journey to building my own business and becoming financially independent. It's been a while. It's been a couple good months. I remember my last episode was an interview with Cody Orgill in Australia back in like May of this year. Now it's November, so it has been a little while, and quite a lot has happened in those couple of months. So in this episode, I'm just gonna try to bring you up to speed in like broader terms, because I cannot talk exactly about what I've been building and what I've been doing in the past couple of months, but I can give like hints. I've basically been working on an app with a friend of mine, but we cannot really like give details of the name of the app. But my friend has been sharing a bit of content as well on this, so I think it's gonna be it's kind of a good time right now to sort of talk about it. Also because I haven't uploaded on here for quite a long time, so. Anyways, another thing I noticed, my tech is just becoming like outdated now. Like the battery on my camera is like dead within, I don't know, like half an hour or something. So I got another battery on charge, and then my microphone is also acting up. So I really hope that the like audio quality comes out right. But apologies if like every couple of, I don't know, like 10 to 20 minutes, like things cut out, or I have to say something again. It's just because of or like I'll like, if the audio is fine, then like in the video like cuts out, then I'm just gonna overlay it with like a thumbnail, I guess, because I don't really like to recite or like repeat stories that I'm telling. So I hope it's gonna go well all in one go, but we'll have to see. Part of that is also just because it's been a while. Like I took like a bit of time to set everything up. Took a little bit of time, making sure that everything like is connected and stuff. So, but here we are. We're still in Taiwan. That's my current situation. We're actually traveling to my home country, the Netherlands, which it has been quite a while since I've been back home. It's been like a year and a half now. So I'm quite excited for that. I'm bringing my girlfriend with me. We got her a Schengen visa for the European zone. So we plan to do some traveling over there. We're going to be there for 2 months. And we're going to be there during winter, which is going to be fun because it's cold, it's dark, it's rainy. Like it's the dreary season, and especially the dark season right now over there. So I'm quite excited to spend, time with family, and you got the holidays and stuff like that. So it's gonna be quite a lot of fun. We have quite some fun plans for that. I will not bring my equipment, by the way, so there's probably not going to be another podcast episode for 2 months at least. So yeah, that's kind of like what's been going on. But I guess we can just mainly get into the main part of this talk, which is like what I've been doing in the past couple of months, because I actually started this podcast about a year ago. I don't exactly remember when I did my first, like when I published my first episode, but it was probably around this time of year. Like I think it was November 2023 or maybe October. I don't quite remember that. But yeah, at that time I was sort of dabbling into creating my own startups. Now I have like coding experience for over 6 years now, and I started out doing like freelance work, and about 4 years ago, or it's been over for like pretty much 4.5 years now, I think. I got my first job as a web developer, basically. And since then, I haven't really, like, because I didn't really have the need, but I just didn't really dabble into, like, my own business and that sort of stuff. And about a year ago, after I published a backlog of travel videos to my other channel called TravelingTice, and with uploading that backlog of videos, I sort of, like, closed that chapter a little bit. I mean, I still plan to upload travel content, but it's definitely not my main focus anymore. My main focus has become building online businesses. I closed the TravelingTice chapter a little bit, like no more focus on travel content. In fact, right now when I'm traveling, I'm not even bringing my big camera anymore. I'm just filming with my phone. I can still make vlogs with my phone. It's actually got I got the iPhone 15, so it's got a good quality camera. It's got pretty good audio, pretty good stabilization. Actually, the stabilization is much better as my main camera. But I'm just not focused too much on the YouTube side of things anymore with regards to travel-related content. So, I mean, the Tice's Tech Track podcast is also not my main focus. This is just more of a tool for me to document my journey through my main focus, which is, building online businesses. There have actually been quite some nice updates since then. So, at that time, I was working on one of my main startups that I sort of started out with was the Map My Travels, which is like a map builder application, like a web application. And I think I made a podcast about that, if I remember correctly, introducing that map application and sort of like the challenges I had with that. That's currently the only app that has actually been successful a little bit. I had my first paying customer on Map My Travels now. Like someone upgraded their account because how it works is that you have a free tier, and 99% of the people that are currently on Map My Travels are on the free tier. But you have limits, so you can only have 100 markers on one map. But you can have as many maps as you want, basically. And also you can only add, you can upload routes, like GPX routes. For example, when you did a bicycle trip or something, or a road trip, and you want to upload the exact line that you went on, you recorded that through a GPS device, you can upload that to the Map My Travels application. And then on the free plan, you can only upload, I think it was 10 of those lines per map. You also have the option to upload your own marker images, so you can have your own designs and stuff on it. But I all kept it at I think the custom markers are 5 you can add on the free plan. And then I also created a Strava integration, so you don't even have to download those GPS files and upload them. You can basically just pull them straight from your Strava account. I created an integration, which is only there on the paid plan. So I created that. I created 2 paid tiers, so you got the hobby plan and then the business plan. And there are currently 2 paying customers on the hobby plan, which brings in a grand total of $120 US per year. So it's not a lot. I mean, it's they're cheap plans. A lot of people are telling me actually that they're too cheap. But I also have to take into account some of my competitors. I got a few other sort of similar tools. I would say mine is sort of the most visually appealing. That's sort of its USP is the focus on design and really making your map stand out. Visually speaking. And but pricing wise, I think there were 2 main competitors, and I sort of priced myself right in the middle between those 2. So that's sort of why I think my pricing is pretty strategy is pretty good. But I haven't updated that in a long time. I haven't even done anything with Map My Travels in months. The only thing I did recently was make that payment flow automatic, because before I was sort of in the mindset of okay, don't do extra work when it hasn't been proven yet. I think I probably mentioned that once, which basically means that don't develop features like coding features for an application until you know that it's gonna be a useful feature and people are gonna make use of it. And so with Map My Travels, I was very strict to okay, I'm not going to wait with developing any new cool features until there are more people that are using it and hopefully also paying for it. And it turned out that I basically didn't complete the payment flow. So what you do is you go to the pricing page, you're interested in upgrading your account, and then you basically are presented with hey, sorry, you can't pay yet. Just send me an email, and then I will send you a payment link. And then after that payment has been completed with that payment link, then I can upgrade your account. So instead of the payment flow being automatic, it was like 3 steps. Like they have to send me an email, which they could do through the website, so that was sort of like easy. And then secondly, I had to send them a payment link, so they had to wait for that, which usually, like, I was pretty quick. Like, I usually did it within a day. And then after they paid, then I would like update their account manually in the database, which was interesting because I actually could have had more customers, because I had more than, like, I think I had in total like 6 people reaching out to me for a payment link. And when I sent them out, only 2 of them actually came through and paid. You know what I mean? And I think just those extra steps were like, people were maybe like impulse buying a little bit, and so I basically like lost money literally. So that sort of validated my need for just making that payment flow automatic. And I was able to basically code it in like 2 hours. So, potentially speaking, if in the future I get another 6 requests, that could have tripled my yearly income. So instead of like having $120 a year, it could have been, what is that, like 240, so $360 a year, you know what I mean? So I think that was time well spent. But for the rest, I haven't done any updates on that. But it's kind of cool. That's like the only application that now is making money. And when that first payment actually came through, and I'm using Stripe, so like Stripe is sort of like geared towards like developers, and they made this like nice notification of like, congratulations on your first customer, like you got a new customer that was like doing a subscription. So the ones that I have are yearly subscriptions, so they're like paying $60 per year, but I also got a monthly plan, and then you're paying like $6 a month. So and actually those were the ones that didn't come through. So I think I only had like 2 or 3 requests for like a yearly payment, of which 2 actually came through. And then there were 2 that were wanting to do like a monthly thing, and they totally ignored. Or actually, I think I did do a follow-up with them. Hold on 1 second. I did do a follow-up with them, but they didn't respond. So I got 1 response back on like a follow-up, just asking like, hey, are you still interested in upgrading? And they were like, no, we changed our minds. But if you would have caught them before they changed their minds, it could have made another, I don't know, $6 or something. But, that was sort of an interesting discovery. All right, so that was Map My Travels. I did have 2 other ventures, one of which I most definitely talked about, which was Do It or Else, which was like this ultra motivation, like connect like negative consequences to not following through on your goals sort of thing. That kind of waned. I don't think like Google really picked that one up like SEO wise, so that just like, I haven't spent any time on that, because I don't think the idea was like as good as it maybe could be, but that would also be a lot of work to sort of keep up. And then there is another one that I'm not sure if I ever talked about. It was called Graduation Photo Shoot Now, which I not really stumbled upon, but I kind of discovered, because like I was following these influencer sort of guys about SEO sort of things, and they basically guided me to like a tool with which you can like basically discover keywords. And I discovered this keyword, I went on that tool and I like put in a lot of keywords related to like photo shoots, I think it was, and I found out that graduation photo shoot is a keyword that is searched a lot. Like there's a huge search volume, but there's not a lot of competition. So if you create a website totally geared towards that keyword, it would be very easy to rank for that keyword, which is actually very interesting to find out, because I remember I did put quite some effort into that thing before this other thing with my friend became like the biggest focus of the past couple of months. But it never really took off just yet. So that's something I kind of want to work on a bit more next year. What it is, it's an AI photo shoot of you graduating. So you just upload a couple photos of yourself, can be any kind of photos, doesn't have to be graduation photos, just like portraits or like selfies, all that sort of stuff. And then you get like a graduation photo shoot out of it. So I thought it was kind of funny, kind of like a funny idea, and kind of copied from some other guys, like not totally copied. I don't think there is like a graduation photo shoot AI tool yet out there. You can do it. You can have you can use different tools to make yourself look like graduation, but this is like specifically geared towards this keyword. And I don't know. I was writing blog posts for it until like I think it was March of this year, and then April came around. That's when I went to Australia, and that's sort of where things started to change. So yeah, we can start going into that right now, which is basically the main focus for the past couple of months. Yeah, so to give a bit of backstory on that project, when I started out with web development back in 2018, I wanted to get a lot of experience. And so at the time, this was like back when I was doing bicycle touring, so like my TravelingTice era was at its height, sort of. Like it was in between my two bike tours that I did, actually. Like I started when I was 18, straight out of high school, did one bike tour through Northern Europe, made vlogs about it, and my YouTube channel kind of started to gain traction. And then I went back home for 7 months to earn money and also to learn about web development a bit more. And so during this time, I was just basically scouring for, I want to get experience, I want to put stuff on my portfolio. But I was also watching a lot of YouTubers, like one of the main ones was Jayo Nation. So he's currently around like 300,000 subscribers, but his view rate is quite a bit lower. So it's mostly because he just like put all kinds of content on his main channel, which is not ideal, of course. You've got very many different audiences. But at the time, I think he was living in China. And he was gearing up for his bike tour around the world. He's actually already started it twice before that. But when I discovered him, he was preparing for his third attempt. Because like the first attempt, he got hit by a truck while cycling, which is pretty crazy. And the second attempt, he had like a knee injury or like knee issues that sort of hold him down. So he was getting geared up for his third attempt, which actually was kind of like his most successful attempts. He got quite far. And I kind of followed him around. I even met him. I met him at the end of 2019. Because since that time, when I was scouring for experience, he had a website. He had his own website, which is kind of like his brand, Jayo Nation, which was a very slow website, a very bad website, basically. And I reached out to him and was basically saying like, hey, I'm a fan of your channel. And I'm also a starting web developer and I just need experience. So I offer to make a new website for you completely for free. And that worked. Like that video, he saw it and he told me like recently when we met, he said like that was like probably the first time that someone sent a video message to me. So that was really cool. That came out very nicely. Ended up helping him with his website, and on his website, this is where like all the dots are like connecting. On his website, he had a map widget, like he had this map of his like tour idea on a Google Maps app, and that sort of sparked the idea for Map My Travels. That kind of came from that project. And so, other than me basically helping him with his website, we also became good friends because we also had like the bicycle touring thing in common. So there were multiple levels on which we were sort of like in common. Another one was that I had learned a bit of Chinese in class, and he was living in China. So there was also like just this general interest in Asia and China and this part of the world. Which is also part of the reason why I ended up in Taiwan. So there's a lot of connecting dots with this guy. Anyway, so we basically met back in 2018. I was doing his website and we became sort of like friends. Then at the end of 2019, I met him in Bangkok. And a little bit before that time, my development skills have started to develop a bit more. And I was looking for a freelance project. And my friend came to me and he was like, I want to pitch you this idea. And this idea was basically for for the business that he used to do before he was doing bicycle travel, or I think at the time he was still having that kind of a business, which was import-export. That's basically the reason why he moved to China in the first place, is because he was an importer of goods from China to his US clients. He was like a middleman between, like US clients, which were like, he was in like gifts and stuff, like gift sort of trinkets, that sort of stuff. And he was sourcing goods in China, but he was doing it in the US at first, which led him to kind of like not having a lot of oversight of like the kind of products that were sourced in China. And then he had one order totally like failing because the quality wasn't up to standards and that sort of stuff. And so from that time, he decided to move to China to be closer to the factories, which was pretty cool. So he became, he was living in China, and then there he got inspired to like, doing bicycle travel and that sort of stuff. That's where, I went in, like I sort of like came into the picture, and, we sort of like became closely connected to like the travel side of things, but also now the tech side of things. So he pitched this idea of this app that could help him in his business, basically. Because what would happen is he would get like these quotations from factories for products, and they would have all sorts of information, not just price, but also things like how many pieces fit in a container, because you're going to have to move these goods with like a container ship, which then he uses to send to his like shipping company to sort of like figure out the details. But usually this process was very slow and messy, because the quotations that he would get are usually like in, Excel format, and, a bit backwards and a bit confusing. Like they were using like Chinglish, so it wasn't like fully translated very well. And some of the details, like he would have to ask for certain extra details, and he would only get back to them like a week later or something like that. Like it was a very slow and messy process. And he told me like since the beginning, he always thought that an app or like a website could sort of like solve this issue, but it never came around. Now, there have actually been a few other software programs that people were using. We discovered them in China. But he still found that there was a need for a product like this. And in the beginning, he was basically hiring me to create this product for him. And I don't know exactly what the plan for him was at the time. Like he was going to use it in like, people that he knew, like they were going to use it in their factories to sort of like quote their customers and stuff, and it would help them out. But in the end, I think he also wanted to like market it to like a broader audience. And so I created this program for him at the time. It wasn't a very nice program. It was, I just started learning about coding. So basically, I just didn't know what I was doing. Like, it was just a very messy, I think I did like 2 or 3 iterations, because the first one was really crap. And then I started to learn more. So I was like, screw this, I'm going to start over again. And actually, it was like one of the projects that I learned the most from, like I grew the most in. So that was sort of like a very cool thing, but he was just hiring me, so it was his project. He was just hiring me as, develop this project for me. And then I would, I would sort of market it and take it from there. And then he stopped his travels, or I don't know exactly what happened. No, it was even before that. Like he was still traveling, but things got in the way. I think for me, the biggest factor was I got my full-time job, and we sort of lost contact, and this project just sat there, basically. Kind of unfinished. It wasn't like there where we wanted it to be. And, COVID happened, for example, as well. So I was having my job. I was going through a bit of a rough period at the time as well. And he, when COVID happened, he was like trapped in China for a little while. The whole world of commerce was like coming to a standstill. So, we've always kept in contact, like kind of going back and forth, but this project sort of like went under the radar for a good couple of years. I think it was like 4 or 5 years that we didn't do anything about this project. So yeah, this project kind of got under the radar. I got my job in the Netherlands, which was like a full-time job. So, that took quite a lot of time from me. I think at the time I was also developing like the first version of Map My Travels and stuff. That was all happening around that time. And But yeah, we kind of kept in contact, but this thing kind of like went under the radar. But in the meantime, I was gaining a lot of experience as a web developer through my work. Like, it was basically the perfect environment to like learn a lot. And even just before my work, I went on a coding bootcamp in Amsterdam where I learned a lot of things. That was like one of the main like there was like a 2-month bootcamp. It was money well spent. Let's just put it that way, because actually through them is how I got my job in the first place as well, because they were connected to these like job agencies, like agency boards, like job board sort of thing, but they sort of like helped you out a bit as well. And through that I got connected to my current employer, which I'm still employed by. It's still my part-time job, which I'm quite happy with. Like, it's a really nice job, and I don't want to quit unless like one of these businesses really like takes off and like it's becoming like a stable sort of income for me. But yeah, it was like pretty perfect, because through that job I just learned so many things. Also about like working together with other developers. Like, that was something that I had basically missed. Like, before the bootcamp, I had never even met anyone that was doing coding. Like, I was never able to have a conversation about JavaScript and that sort of stuff. So that was really cool. So that was like around 2020. That was a very transformative year for me, because I got my job and I just became much better at my craft, which was web development. And then just the years flew by quite quickly. COVID was happening around that time, so I was in the Netherlands, and I was sort of preparing for my trip to Taiwan, like me moving to Taiwan, because I was not fitting quite well in that sedentary lifestyle, especially because I was in my hometown, and I like traveling. I like being out there. I like being in different places, and I sort of had to scratch that itch again. And that happened in 2022 when I moved to Taiwan, and like web development still went a thing. Actually, at the time, I wanted to really launch Web My Travels, but some things got in the way. It was quite a harsh period in the beginning when I was living in Taiwan, because I just had very high expectations for myself because of earlier travels that were very successful, but I ended up quite in a quite a dark place, very lonely, very not like just chaotic. It wasn't a very very nice time for me when I was there. But I was facing some fears that I sort of had to face. Like, I sort of had to go through that period to learn and grow and to become the person that I am today. Like, I totally think that that year was 2022. That year really shaped me up. That really gave me the realizations of like who I am and that sort of stuff. And it also gave me the relationship that I still have today, which I'm very grateful for. So that was quite a transformative year, which also like sort of unlocked the door to more travel. And then 2023 was a lot of travel, and I was very busy with the backlog of travel videos. So that like the TravelingTice backlog stuff. And at the end of 2023, when I started this podcast, that's when I, coming full circle, that's when I stopped doing that and started focusing on startups. And when I started focusing on startups, things were, I don't know, like, it was kind of neat. It was kind of interesting to go through that myself, like being a solo guy. But I just found out that my specialty is coding. My specialty is developing stuff. But I didn't have insider knowledge on a certain market where you might need these kind of tools. Like, I was, for example, like Map My Travels might be the only exception, because that was like really geared towards the bicycle touring community, which I knew a lot of. But when like, for example, what is it, like Do It or Else, the one that like the extreme accountability app, I was posting this on Product Hunt, which is kind of like, it's a place, it's an interesting place, Product Hunt. It gives you like a little bit of exposure on apps that you publish, like you get featured on like a day and stuff. But you're publishing it to a pool of people that are also tech people. You know what I mean? Like they're usually also just app creators, that are there to like sort of like see what's the newest hippest thing. And at the time, like AI was going crazy. That was like one of the first episodes of this podcast was about AI. And yeah, I felt like I was just in a world of like these indie hackers and developers that are just creating programs for each other. Like a lot of like SaaS, like streamlining business stuff. But it was very generic in the sense that like you don't have a lot of people that are having like very specific market knowledge about like a specific niche, because that's the niche. The niche is being an indie hacker, being a bootstrap developer. But what I needed at the time was like having some insider knowledge on like a field or a place or like an industry that I at the time just didn't know anything about. You know what I mean? So like graduation photo shoot was sort of going into that direction, because like there was, the niche was sort of like, photo shoots and graduation photo shoots and stuff. And it might have actually been a huge potential one, because, like the search volume is huge for that keyword. So that's something I still keep in the back of my mind to like sort of start looking into next year. But I was still missing a little bit of like, I want to know like a lot about a certain industry, but I just didn't know how would I get access to such industry, or how would I choose it. And then I was thinking about like, what am I passionate about? Of course, and I'm passionate about, like climate change, green things. So I was thinking like maybe I can do something like, I don't know, solar panels, or these like eco-friendly, like disposable utensils or something like that. Like I was sort of like starting to think about those things. But around that time, something happened. Something came onto me that was actually kind of ideal, which was that I remember I think I was on the train to the airport to fly to Australia. And my friend Matt, who, we were just, every I would say couple of weeks, we exchanged a message. And he was just saying, like, he moved to the US in the meantime, stopped traveling. And he wanted to continue traveling in the US because, COVID sort of like closed Asia at the time. So he was moving to the US. And he wanted to do van life. But that van life venture sort of bogged him down even more, because he was spending a lot of money on the van. So much so that it was just becoming like a way bigger project than he would have imagined. And at the same time, his wife and kid also moved to the US. So they had like a suburban house there that he was like sort of like the main responsible person for. And so he was sort of stuck, he was stuck in that position, and, wanted to sort of like find a way out. And so we were like sort of talking about that. And then he mentioned like, oh, but this project, this app that we developed those 5 years ago for the import-export business, he said, dude, that had huge potential. Like he was like, man, that would have been a huge thing, had we continued working on it. And then I was like, well, like the servers, I actually like a week before that, I think I closed down the servers for that app. Like just like I pulled the website offline. Then I was like, hey, I mean, I still know where those files are. Like I can just like whip it up again, like just make it go online again, and then we can just sort of see what's still there. And so I did, and that was really cool. Like we were like, okay, this, we can sort of do this again. And it was very interesting, because like we started this like 5 years ago, we went our own ways. And then after these 5 years, in some crazy coincidence, we were both at a period, like at a stance in our life, where we're like, okay, we're looking for something that this app could bring us. So it was a very cool little coincidence that, or I don't know if you could call it a coincidence, maybe it was like meant to be. But it was great. It was like very good timing wise. It was a bit hectic. I went to Australia first, to sort of, I would almost say to sort of close that chapter, because Australia was my first real like travel experience, in the sense that I became sort of like a social butterfly. It's really when I like came out socially, and I did a lot of like self-discovery. When I was bicycle touring, well, I was mostly by myself, and it was a bit hard to like, really get ingrained into like a different place. But when I went to Australia, this was like back in 2018. I lived in Perth for 5 months, and when I was living in that city, I was really like, I don't know, like I, got jobs in the city. I met people there. I went to the nightlife there. I never really did that in the Netherlands. So that was kind of like me becoming an adult. Was like, or me becoming like, I don't know, what would you call that? A bit of like a social butterfly in some ways. Me really like developing myself and growing really happened in Perth. So I always had fond memories of that. But because in the years following that, my life just went through ups and downs. I always thought that like when I would go back to Perth, I would have that same sort of like spark again. So I went back there for like 2.5 weeks, I think, to meet with old friends. And there was also quite an important mission there. That was to pick up my bicycle, my touring bicycle. I have it again. So those two things sort of like went together in Australia, and it turned out to be quite a bit of the opposite. Like, it's kind of like toxic nostalgia. You know what I mean? Like you always admire like this place and how it was at the time, but that was a big learning. It was like, you have to sort of like take that time context with it as well, because this time when I went to Perth, a lot of the friends that I used to have there, they weren't there anymore, or their life was busy. And so there were a couple friends that like I thought I would meet with, and then ended up like, oh, I'm not in town, or not necessarily that, but we just didn't end up meeting, or we ended up meeting at like the last minute. So the first 2 weeks were kind of lonely in that sense, because I was also staying with a great friend that's like hosted me back in 2018 when I was living there for a bit as well. And he was super nice. Like that was great. But he was also like working a lot. So, it was just like I kind of had to fill my days up, and mentally wasn't super great. But at that time, when I was in Australia, this project was sort of starting again. So I was like starting up the servers again, and it turned out that there was another opportunity coming up with going to the Canton Fair, which is like the biggest trade show in China or in Asia, which was basically where we had created this app for in the first place. Like this app was created for people at the Canton Fair. Like that's where it was going to be used, and that's where you're going to be making all the connections that might become like customers of this app that we created. And so Annie, Matt's wife, was going to go to the Canton Fair at the end of April. Like timing wise, it was pretty perfect, because I was going to Australia. I was going to be there for like 3.5 weeks, and then first in Perth, and then I flew over to Brisbane to meet with Cody. And then I was going to be flying back to Taiwan with my bicycle, drop my bicycle at the house, stay there for like 3 days, and then the Canton Fair would start. So I would like fly over to Guangzhou, which is where the Canton Fair was held, which is only like an hour flight from Taiwan. It's very close by. So that was like, you can just go there and say hi. Like you don't have to, like this app is definitely not going to be ready by that time. But, you can just, pitch your idea to a few people and, do that sort of stuff. And I'm very glad I said yes. I mean, probably if I didn't go to the Canton Fair at that time, we might not have gone as far as we have gone by this point, because in the end, Matt, who is living in America, flew over to China last month with me to sort of like promote this app and sort of like do product research there. So we were pretty invested like by the end of it. But in April, when I went to Canton Fair, that was also me showing to him like, hey, I'm ready for this opportunity, because like I'm looking for such an opportunity. And it is the exact thing that I wanted, which is getting insider like knowledge and information about an industry, which is like a huge industry. Like the Canton Fair is where like it's the main import-export sort of like place in the world, sort of thing, So it's a huge like just a big marketplace. And I also sort of discovered like how cool fairs were, because I never really went to a fair before that time. Like I was a developer, we don't like to meet people, Like there might be a few like tech specific like fairs, but I never went to one. And so this was like a huge eye opener for me. It's like these things are pretty cool, because you can just walk to booths, you can walk to people, talk to people, ask them all sorts of questions. It's like one big social sort of like event, and a way to like network with people and stuff. And you meet like all sorts of different people and all sorts of different businesses as well. So it was just a great way. Like it was the best way to sort of like for me to get an introduction into this world. And I met with Matt's wife Annie, who has worked into that business, like in the import export. I mean, she was a factory owner, so she had a factory with picture frames, and she's still doing like import export and stuff like that. And so I met her at the Canon Fair, and she sort of like showed me around and sort of like showed me the ways of how things were done there. Um, it was interesting in the beginning. It was a bit hard in the beginning, like because like I was totally thrown out of my comfort zone. Like I mean, by that time I'd lived in Taiwan for 2 years, so I'd lived in like a Sinophone country, so I sort of knew how things like like cultural cues, like social cues, that sort of stuff are very similar between Taiwan and China because they're one country or they're two countries. I don't know. Whatever your opinion is, I don't want to get into that. But anyway, so when I was there, like it was very cool because like I could sort of already use my language skills, which at the time were pretty good. Like I had learned Chinese. I went to this Chinese school in Taiwan, so like I learned Mandarin, and that came very handy right there. They speak a little bit of a different accent, but I was able to get myself, I was speaking, and everybody was very impressed by the Chinese that I was, speaking. But so that was very cool. That was like a very cool experience, and just like, I mean, even if this app wouldn't work out, it was still a really cool experience because I just get to see how this world of import export works, and it's a huge world. You think that like the products that you buy are created and produced by the shops that you buy them from. That's not the case. They are made by some family factory in China most of the time. Like there's just, it's a crazy world. It's just a crazy world that I didn't know anything about. And so April was like just a real dive into this world. And I'm kind of glad I only went for like 3 days because it was exhausting too. Like after I went, I heard from Matt that Annie also thought I was just very tired when I was there. Like I had a tiring appearance to me because I was just like exhausted. I mean, I was coming down from a cold, so I was like not feeling ideal as well. And I probably hadn't rested fully yet from the Australia trip, which was pretty taxing as well. Like I basically went with no sleep for like 2 days because I had to travel with my bicycle from Brisbane back to Taiwan, which I had like 2 layovers. I had like a layover in Japan as well as in like Cairns in Australia. So that was like a pretty crazy trip, and I was just recovering from that when I was back in Taiwan. And so then went to the Canton Fair like 2 or 3 days later. But I'm so glad I went because it really helped me during this second trip, which was like a couple months later, last October, because I had sort of like already seen this world once. So I sort of knew like, you would go to a booth and you would pick a few products that you're interested in, and you would basically ask for a quote. So you would exchange business cards. And, I sort of went through that process a couple times. So the second time that I went to the Canton Fair, it wasn't all new to me anymore. So I'm super glad I went back in April. That was like a huge thing. And Matt also told me that was like a huge thing that you did that. So anyways, going back to April, that was like a pretty profound experience. Very cool. Got to see Guangzhou. I'd been to China once before in my life. I was 15 years old. It was like a school trip, and we only went to Beijing. So it was like a different part of China that I'd seen. And it was also like China 10 years into the future, which is like, China is living in the future, man. Like it's pretty crazy. Like the amount of, for example, just like electric vehicles on the road, like it's like 90% is electric there. It's pretty crazy. And also the fact that you pay with everything with an app, like with a QR code and stuff, like they're very advanced in that front. So that was a very cool, very intense trip. And when I went back home, it was kind of like, okay, now we need to get back to work. But now we need to get to work. Now it's time to, if we really want to give this a try, we were aiming for the next Canton Fair, which is in October. They're twice a year. And we're gonna make this app really cool. Like it was good in multiple dimensions. It was good for me to see that industry, But it was also good for me because now I could see where this app was being used because I'd never been there. Like Matt was always giving me the designs and like this is sort of how it should be. But because I'd never been on the ground, I never really knew what kind of like a context it would be used in. So me going there was ideal for that as well. And it gained me a lot of like, I also got a few of like these like sample quotes from people because I just pretended I was like an import export buyer, like, yeah, I've been in the business for like 10 years, or like I'm like an experienced import export guy, and I'm importing from the Netherlands, that sort of stuff. So that was like a really good experience. And the months after that, I basically just got to work and I made this app really cool. Like I spent a lot of hours, like hundreds of hours now into this thing. I'm actually time checking. I think I'm over 400 hours now that I spent coding. It's like I don't time check when I'm like at the show and that sort of stuff. I just time check when I'm coding. And yeah, a lot of hours, just a lot of time went into this thing. I'm the sole developer still because we don't have any income yet, so we're really bootstrapping. We're not going to investors, anything like that. We just want to make the product really good, and then we want to onboard people. And once we have that, that's when we can say like, okay, let's also like promote this app a bit more. But after April, the app was 5 years old, and I hadn't worked on it for 5 years, so there were a lot of things in there that were just like really bad. Because like I also changed quite a bit after 5 years. My skills gotten better, etc. So that was really cool. And so I basically just went to work. Within that time, like from April last year, we made a few trips. We went to Hong Kong and Macau in July for my birthday, which was really cool. My girlfriend has an aunt living in Hong Kong. She's got like family all over Asia. So we went to her and she invited us for like yam cha, which is like tea and having different kind of dim sum food. So we spent a couple days in Hong Kong and then we spent like a day in Macau, which was pretty cool. Went to all the casinos and stuff like that. It was pretty crazy. And then after that, another trip that we did since then was back to Indonesia. We went to Indonesia for summer, like around August. Because it was like a summer break here for university. My girlfriend also graduated, and my family came over for her graduation, and we spent 2 weeks just traveling around Taiwan. That was pretty amazing. I should actually be talking more about that because that was really cool, having my family over from the Netherlands, like their first experience of Taiwan, and it was a really cool experience. And my girlfriend's family was also here, so yeah, it was one big group, but it was so much fun, like beyond expectations, like a lot of fun. But anyway, so we did a bit of travel and went back to Indonesia for like a month. That was quite a long time, like 3 to 4 weeks, and then we also went to Malaysia for like a week, and then we flew back to Taiwan. And but during all of that time, I was just working on this app for October. So yeah, that was a huge thing. That was like a very big moment, and that was like that was just like a lot of work that went into it. Like like the cool thing about it is like at this point, because of like 5 years of experience of like building UI and different like UX, like user experience interfaces and stuff like that, we were able to basically take this app to a whole nother level, like even beyond Matt's expectations, because Matt was always sending me like designs, and I was just, at the time I was literally interpreting them because like that's all the mental capacity I had. Like I was like, how do I get this to work? But now I'm kind of like thinking at a more senior way to it, to where like how like certain flows that maybe we'll be able to change to make them like a lot easier or a lot more comprehensive. And also just the fact that I'd been to the show already just made that whole experience so much better. And we made a pretty cool app, like a really, really cool app. And it's by far the biggest project I've done solo. So it's a big thing. And yeah, it all sort of like came together. There were a few things, like we had a few features that we really wanted to have in this app. Like for example, we have a business card scanner, so you can take a photo of a business card and it will basically scan all of the information from that business card, like your email address, your phone number, which are gonna be like on the quote. So that's like, pretty cool, pretty instant. And so like sometimes it will be like Matt will be like, you've been doing this a couple times now where I have something in mind and you take it and you make it like 10 times better than what I expected. So like it was really cool being able to sort of like use those like now I would say like 6 years, almost 7 years of experience of web development and make that into this like product. So yeah, we have a pretty cool product, and it was getting a bit stressful towards the end because there were a few features that I still wanted to develop and I still wanted to be part of this app before we went to China, before we went to the Canton Fair again and really started promoting it. But yeah, it was getting a bit tight, a bit too tight because, when you're making code changes, there's always mistakes you can make, which can introduce bugs, like things can basically break. And because it was getting very tight, I was not sure if I was going to be able to get this thing like sort of stable before the show, which is kind of like a regret. Like I probably should have held off of like one particular feature before going to the show. But I think I can, elaborate on that in a different podcast. And so, last October, last month, that was when we went, and I'm going to keep that for the next episode. So yeah, that's gonna be another episode. My friend Matt Gallett, he's also created vlogs during our time together when we were in China. We went to China for 3 weeks, so it was very intense. I was really nervous. I was like, before like the trip to China again, I was like pretty nervous because my friend is a social butterfly, and I thought like, or I would say of myself that I'm not as social and as he is, I guess. But I thought that I would be sort of like the same as in April, where I would like close down and be very nervous and stuff like that. And but it didn't quite go that way. So it was that was very nice. But anyways, I'm gonna keep those details for a different time. But yeah, if you want to see my friend Matt's vlogs, you can go to his YouTube channel. I'll link it down below. In the show notes, where you can watch, like he's currently busy uploading the vlogs from that trip, because we just came back I think 2 weeks ago, so it's still fresh in mind. But it was quite a transformative trip. Like it was a pretty transformative trip for the both of us. So but yeah, that's I'm gonna keep that for another episode, because I think this one is running a little less than an hour, so I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to share right here. So yeah, thank you for listening to this episode of Tice's Tech Track. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologies if anything went wrong. I ran to the camera a couple of times just to check if it was still recording. I think the battery is about to die, so I'm gonna wrap it up. So anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I hope to be able to do another episode probably early next year. I'm sorry for the big gaps, but I just don't want to bring, because like our suitcases are already like full of stuff, so I just won't be able to bring my camera and my microphone with me, unfortunately, this time. So yeah, you're just gonna have to bear with me when I'm back in Taiwan, which is gonna be probably around like February next year. So it's gonna be quite a big gap again. So I'm sorry for that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please give it a like. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one next year. So see you later. Bye-bye.